Lesson 133. I will not value what is valueless. This lesson calls to mind many sections of the text. He says, we will not speak of lofty, world-encompassing ideas, but dwell instead on benefits to you. You do not ask too much of life, but far too little. When you let your mind be drawn to bodily concerns, to things you buy, to eminence as valued by the world, you ask for sorrow, not for happiness. And he makes the point, there are no satisfactions in the world. In the text, that coincides with the idea, there is no hope of happiness in a dream world of illusion. And I used to read, there's no hope of happiness in a dream world of illusion, and be dismayed by it. But I realized over time in practice, it's not just that there's no hope of happiness in the dream. There's no hope of anything in the dream. There's no hope of sorrow, because to say there's hope of any experience that you can get from the dream is to make the dream a cause, and the dream will never be a cause. It cannot cause happiness. It cannot cause sorrow. So you could just as easily say there's no hope of anything. There's no hope of devastation in a dream world of illusion, because those things that experience is at the level of the mind, and the cause is the denial of truth. The cause will never be anything outside of us. I'm going to pick out just a couple of pieces of the lesson. The range is set. There are only two alternatives to choose between. That has a parallel in the section on the real alternative in the text. The range is set because if you choose the ego thought system, every end is sure. So what may look like a million different paths in the world, they all have the same end: disappointment, nothingness, and death. So the range is only between choosing with the ego or choosing with Jesus or the Holy Spirit, or your internal guide. So he says it would be most ungenerous to you to let alternatives be limitless. They are not limitless, because all the roads the world seems to offer have the same goal and lead to the same place. There's no compromise in what your choice must bring. It cannot give you just a little, for there is no in between. Every choice you make brings everything to you or nothing. So before he goes into the test by which to determine what's valuable and what's valueless, he makes that point: every choice you make brings everything or nothing, brings you heaven or hell. That is the scope of choice. And heaven is everything, hell is nothing, in a form that seems like something. The very first criteria to determine value basically eliminates everything in the world. If you choose a thing that will not last forever, what you chose is valueless. Nothing in the world lasts forever. We don't last forever. Well, it's difficult for our minds to grasp the idea that what we identify with has no value. An individual self outside of oneness, outside of God, existing on its own, without knowledge, does not have any value. It is destined to turn to dust. Next, if you choose to take a thing away from someone else, you will have nothing left. Okay, that can't be understood in an earthly frame. You can't take that idea of that you can have the thing that you give and set it down in the world and have it be understood. That it can only be understood at the level of the mind, where ideas are abstractions. So if I give you my book, if I give you my book in this world, I don't have it anymore. You have it, because in the world of form, you can give things away and lose them by giving. So he's talking about here ideas. If I give you the idea of love, if I can love infinitely, because it has no earthly frame. It doesn't have to look like something. And if we make it look like something, well, I only love you if I marry you. If I only love you if I hold your hand, then love is very limited because it's not possible to to offer it to everyone. That would be special love. If you choose to take a thing away from someone else, you will have nothing left. This is because when you deny his right to everything, which doesn't make sense in this world, you have denied your own. So when I say I want the peace of God, I must hold that in my mind as something that belongs to everyone, that is limitless. There's nothing in the world that's limitless like that. Who seeks to take away has been deceived by the illusion that loss can offer gain. If I try to take your peace away from you, I've already lost my peace. Yet loss must offer loss and nothing more. Your next consideration is the one on which the others rest. Why is the choice you make of value to you? Purpose is everything. There's no such thing as a holy ego. And that's why he talks about the easiest way in which to be deceived is when the ego isn't even clear on what it wants. For what the ego wants, it fails to recognize. It doesn't even tell the truth as it perceives it to maintain its halo. And the idea that there's such a thing as a holy ego. The ego represents the opposite of God, of love, of oneness, of truth. There will never be anything holy about egos. And if we perceive ourselves or anyone else as an ego, we will be pushing away the idea of the peace of God and our experience of that. His ineffectual mistakes appear as sins to him. Okay, so in this paragraph 10, it talks about some ideas that have a parallel in the earliest chapters of the course. Ineffectual mistakes appearing as sins to him. And in the earliest chapters, he talks about raising body thoughts to the level of the mind. If you raise body thoughts to the level of the mind, you will feel guilty about what you perceive your choices are in the world. They will not appear as mistakes, that you will believe they are sins. He looks upon the tarnish as his own. It's when we look upon what the body does as our choices and representative of who and what we are. The rust is a sign of deep unworthiness within himself. And even in the early chapters, he talks about the necessity of really studying them so that the rest of, so as you move along, it makes sense to you. So it's the most fundamental aspect of looking. What am I looking at? I am looking at my belief I am a body in a world, and what that body does reflects back to me signs of deep unworthiness in me. There aren't right moves to make in this world. We would never have enough information, number one. But number two, we can't control it because it's a scripted dream or illusion or a shadow. You are not the puppet on the stage. You are not the figure in the dream. You are not the character in the movie. Those are all ways of saying the same thing. The Course is trying to convince us to reevaluate what we believe we are at the most fundamental level. It's not whether or not I'm good or bad. It's not whether or not I'm loving or hateful. It is whether or not I'm a body. It's that fundamental. All things are valuable or valueless, worthy or not of being sought at all, entirely desirable or not worth the slightest effort to obtain. Oh, that is such a relief. What could be easier than that? Choosing is easy just because of this. Complexity is nothing but a smokescreen. Ken Wapnick used to say, if you take more than 30 seconds to make any decision at all, then you've joined with your ego. Because the choice of what to do here is part of the illusion. The idea that you're choosing between which road to go down here is a part of the whole. I like to say everything must go in order to have the unfettered mind to which the memory of God can return. So as I said, there's a lot of sections in the course that talk about value and what's valuable. I'm going to run through a couple of them because I think that they're a good complement to this lesson. In chapter 2, the atonement the atonement as defense, he says, "You believe in what you value. If you are afraid, you are valuing wrongly. It's just an error and not a sin, because the peace of God cannot be shaken by errors of any kind. And since we're entitled to that peace of God, we can only be shaken by errors if we're valuing wrongly. We value the illusion over truth." In chapter 2, healing as release from fear, he says the value of the atonement does not lie in the manner in which it is expressed. So that's another way of saying the illusion is never going to dictate the experience. So whether or not it looks like something that you prefer in the world, that seeming, that appearance does not contain the value of the atonement. The value of the atonement is beyond all appearances. That's why you can't make a wrong move in the world. You can't sacrifice the peace of God because of what something looks like here. It's a choice at the level of the mind. Chapter 7, the totality of the kingdom. Illusions are investments. They will last as long as you value them. Values are relative, but they're powerful because they're mental judgments. The only way to dispel illusions is to withdraw investment from them. They will have no life if we withdraw investment. If we see no value in illusions, they will disappear. They will go back into the nothingness from which they came. In the same chapter, under section on unbelievable belief, a fundamental law of sharing. You give what you value in order to keep it in mind. I value the peace of God. That is the only thing I can offer in this world if I want to keep it, which coincides with what he said about if you choose to take a thing away from someone else, you will have nothing left. If I choose to take the peace of God away from you, or to attempt to do that, or if it even seems like I've done it, I have done it to myself. Okay, chapter 25, the rock of salvation. Nothing the world believes as true has any meaning in God's mind at all. Nothing the world believes is true has any meaning in God's mind at all. That is in the rock of salvation, chapter 25. That's another statement about value. If one belief so deeply valued here were true, then every thought God ever had is an illusion. He makes this point repeatedly in the text, that either the world is mad or God is mad. And it's another way of saying I'm choosing between everything and nothing. It's another way of saying I'm choosing between heaven and hell when I decide what I'm going to value. Chapter 24, the introduction. To learn this course requires willingness to question every value that you hold. Not one can be kept hidden and obscure, but it will jeopardize your learning. I remember when I first read that, I thought, whoa, that's serious. To learn the course requires willingness to question every value that you hold. Everything you ever thought was valuable in your world has to be brought up to question, shown to the Holy Spirit, shown to Jesus, so they can look upon it for us and determine what it means and whether or not it's valuable. We, in the situation we have put ourselves in by our rigid identification with the body, with believing we're born of other bodies, with believing the world is real and that we are all doomed here, we can't trust our own good intentions. We will believe our egos are holy. That's what we do here. That's what everybody does here. And the more angry I get at other people for doing it shows how much I'm doing it. So we can't place ourselves further along the path to look back and judge at other people without falling to the bottom of the ladder. So we go together, and it'll always be the case. And it is so important to never teach anyone that they are something you would not want to be. To me, that's the real essence of proving to ourselves we are not an ego and proving what it is we value. Do we value differences or do we value sameness? I will not value what is valueless. Should you begin to let yourself collect some needless burdens or believe you see some difficult decisions facing you, be quick to answer with this simple thought: I will not value what is valueless, for what is valuable belongs to me. Well, I think we're all going to let ourselves collect some needless burdens. We're all going to believe we see difficult decisions. So that's a line we're going to have to repeat over and over again. I will not value what is valueless, for what is valuable belongs to me. We will train our minds and we will learn this course. I will not value what is valueless, and only what has value do I seek, for only that do I desire to find.